Hello, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, Stories to Bering Sea and Beyond. I'm your host, Mark Haler. And today, we have Chief Engineer Derek Hart with us. How you doing today, Derek?
Good.
You've listened to a few of these at this point.
Yeah.
You kind of know where we're going.
Many as I can.
Many as you can. Well, yeah, up there at sea, you can't go out and download them.
No.
You know? You're out there. But let's start at the beginning. Where were you born? And
I was born in Corvallis, Oregon. My dad's from Oregon. Mom is from Missouri. They met in Guam in the Navy. And then I was a result in two other brothers.
So you're a Liberty boy.
Yeah. But I didn't start. I was born in Oregon. I think I grew up. I was there until I was like 7. And then my parents split, and I went with my mom to Missouri. I was in Missouri until I was like 16, 15, and stuff. And then I lived there in the Midwest for most of the time, and then I reconnected with my dad. And then every other year, I'd spend a year in Oregon, year in Missouri, stuff.
Until you were how old?
And well, until I got to basically choose that I would get in trouble and get kicked out of each place. So what would happen? I would spend as much time as I could until they could stand me and my dad in Oregon, and they get sick of me and send me back to mom, and then she gets sick of me and send me back to dad, and I bounced back and forth until I was until I was 19 or something. I think that's when I finally moved to Oregon for good.
Pretty rowdy.
Oh yeah, real rowdy.
Mm-hmm. What brought you to our industry?
Well, you grew up in Toledo, Newport area. You either at one point in your life, at least the troubled kids especially, you're going to do logging, or you're going to at least do some kind of fishing. You're going to go out on a boat one time or another, or you're going to go up in the woods and cut trees. And eventually I went fishing. Actually, I started at a Cadillac dealership, working on cars and fixing cars. And then I crabbed during the slow time during the winter and stuff. And
how did you get that first job?
My first job was it's a Cinderella story. I worked on a boat called the Glass Slipper. And it was probably one of the worst boats in Newport to work for. The guy had a reputation of not paying, and I was a party kid most of the time and stuff, and so keeping a steady job. I kept a steady job, but it was hard, and then so I got aligned with this guy to he's to do tuna fishing. He's never been out on a boat. Well, my best friend growing up got a job fishing before I even started it. My brother Daniel fished a little bit, and he went out on his very first crab trip, and the boat rolled over and everybody died. And I said I would never go fishing.
That was you. Your brother was
no.
on there?
My brother was the first person in our family to actually fish, and he's younger than I am, and he was fishing at the same time. And then my best friend got a boat on a boat called the Nastika. My best friend Jared at the time, and I was 19. It was 19 when we were both 19, and he went out on the Nastika, and it rolled over. It was his first real job, because we were party kids. We didn't and everybody died on it, and I said I'd never go fishing.
So Jared passed?
Yeah.
What was his last name?
Hamrick. And Bob Etter owned the boat. His son was running the boat, and he died in it too. So I said I'd never go fishing, and so I started. I started working at the dealership, and having a land job, and then eventually it slowed down, and some guy asked me if I wanted to go tuna fishing. I don't know what possessed me to try it, so I did, and we went out in this little. I think it was like a little 30-foot. Fiberglass boat, and we went out. Everybody got sick. We're at least 100 miles offshore. Right? Everybody got sick, and the captain, the other guy, everybody.
35-foot boat.
30, yeah. It was a little fiberglass boat. We're out there tuna fishing, so But anyway, so we're jigging. We're throwing jigs off the side of the boat, and I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what the hell's going on. They just stand back here at the very stern of the boat, and when this diver pops up, put it in the gurney and haul in the fish. Well, they all start puking, and laying in bed, and I'm on the back deck by myself, having the time of my life. Divers would go. I mean, they got these little. There's divers, and there's this little. When the lines come tight, they come up out of the water. I'm throwing in the gurneys, and I'm stabbing tuna.
So the divers.
Yeah, well, it's called the diver. It just drags the jig down.
Not a person in there.
No, not a person. Not a person
Okay.
diver. No.
Just
It's
just
a
trying
piece
to
of the gear.
Explain for them.
And they got these other ones that look like kind of like they call them dildos or butt plugs and stuff. But anyway, so when the lines come tight, these come up out of the water, and you got 5 lines off each outrigger. So you got 10 lines in the water at the time, and just basically doing circles and driving around until you hit some tuna. I don't know. I still to this day don't exactly know the science. It's the only tuna trip I ever did.
But you were having a good time.
I had a great time. I told myself I'd never come out here, and I did it. It was nice and sunny, and everybody's throwing up.
Sleeping.
Captain's throwing up, sleeping. Everybody's rotating in bed. I'm on the back deck just bleeding fish. I'm throwing tuna in the gurney. They're coming up over the deck, and just stabbing them and throwing them in a box. And I had a great time. I got paid 1 tuna for that trip. That was my pay.
Yeah. How long was the trip?
It was okay. So first trip, we were a day into it. The boat loses all electricity, totally black, and I'm like, what in the world is? And I know a little bit about mechanics. I've been working at the shop and stuff, but about boat mechanics. I was I never, I realized that the alternator. Was the only thing keeping us giving a little bit of power to the boat, but the battery banker. I don't even know what happened on that boat. I can't even remember if they even had. There's no generator on the boat, so everything was ran off alternator, off the main, then battery bank. Well, something went out. We came in with just running lights on and everything else black. We just turned around. I spent. It was a day. It was a day and a half of daylight that we fished. That we actually The second day, that second half day, everything went black, and we came in, and I had to drive most of the way in because everybody else was sick as shit. Yeah, and so that was my first experience on the ocean.
The captain was sick.
He was sick. Yeah. He was diabetic. He was blind in one eye or something. The guy was fucked up. And,
yeah, I'll go.
I'll go. It's summer, whatever. So I did it, and we got back in. At the time, my girlfriend. Her sister's boyfriend or whatever. We all kind of lived in the same house with their parents or something.
That's party crash
story.
pad.
No. Actually, it was the first. It was. Let's see. So I lived with their parents. I had a girlfriend, and eventually I moved in with the girlfriend and her mom and dad. And she had a sister, but he also had a boyfriend that also lived there. And his name's Jeff Borden, and he's still fishing up in Alaska. But he was working on the boat called the Last Straw at the time. And he's like, hey, I'm quitting tomorrow. They're going to need somebody. So I showed up at the boat and said, hey, Jeff quit. I'm here. Yeah. And it was a bigger boat. It's like a 75-foot boat, 78-foot boat.
Doing what?
It's crabbing. It was crab season at that point. It was since that tuna trip, I didn't go back until. But it was probably had to be the end of December.
Is it still down in Newport?
So yeah, still down in Newport. Yeah. So I get on the boat called the Last Straw, captained by a guy named Brett Hearn. Newport guys will know exactly what I'm talking about. So I show up to the boat and I'm like, hey, Jeff quits. He got a boat. He got a job on another boat, and I'm standing here with my bags. I'm it. I got the job. And so I went crabbing, and I quit my job at the Cadillac dealership. Just then, I was like, I'm going to be a fisherman. After our first trip, I was bait guy kind of, and then we went to a lot of guys that year. I went from bait guy to running the block that same year.
And this is down off Oregon coast.
Newport, yeah.
So you're doing dungey crab?
Dungey crabs, okay. Yeah. And it was a big year.
How big are those pots on the dungey boats?
We had a bunch of 38s, but now they went to 400, and some of them 42s.
38 inches.
Yeah.
So pretty small compared to the 7 foot.
Oh yeah. No, everybody's hand packing them. There's no crane lifting them up or anything like that. You're running up on a block, and everything's done by hand. You're stacking them by hand. You're stacking them 6 high.
Just trying to paint the picture for.
Yeah, I got you.
Everybody sees these ones on TV, and they're 7 by 7.
Yeah. I think they're around 110 pounds, per pot.
So manageable.
A little bit of rope and some buoys and stuff.
And how many crab will you pull up in one of those?
Well, it depends. I mean, I've gotten to where you pull up blanks, you're pulling up twos, and then you're pulling up half pots where you're getting 20 keepers and stuff in them. So it just depends when you're on the crab. But I enjoy doing it. And my lifestyle at the time was running and gunning. Fishing fit in perfectly. It was just make my money, get on land, get fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Were you still getting in trouble at that point, or were you?
Yeah. I think I got in more trouble as I got money.
Yeah.
So, and that's I ended up.
That happens to a lot of guys.
Yeah. Of course, it didn't pay my taxes there for a while and all that stuff. Ended up working on that boat for a couple of years. Did some hake fishing and stuff, and it was a lot of just working for a month, a few weeks and stuff, going out, getting partying, blowing it all, and going back to the boat, doing it again. So
rinse and repeat a couple of years, and then
I did that until I started when I was 9. It was probably I was 20, I think, when I got on the. I was 20 when I got on the last straw, until I was 28. So a long time.
Oh, that wasn't a couple years.
Yeah. That's a couple years. Come on. I was.
Well, I guess when
I was 27, but I did have an incident when I did have a run in with the law finally when I was 21, and stuff, and that kind of changed a little bit.
Can you share what that was, or?
Well, we were doing drugs quite heavily, and we started taking stuff that didn't belong to us, mm-hmm. and eventually we got busted and stuff, and so I right away I quit doing that kind of stuff, but I didn't really quit partying, drinking, gambling and stuff, and then until I met my wife, and then that
would be Heather.
Yeah, that would be Heather. Yeah. But her brother and me were partners in crime, and mostly, it's running around and partying a lot.
Right.
But I quit doing other than that, I quit doing illegal stuff after we got busted with the cops. I felt I didn't really no more taking shit that didn't belong to me.
Time to grow up.
Yeah, a little bit. But I knew her for 2 weeks, and I'm out crabbing on the Lady Law.
Wait a minute, we went from the last straw.
The last straw. Okay, so the last straw's got it.
You're jumping way ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's a blur. I mean, there ain't much to remember, really. Yeah. So, I did that. I had that girlfriend that I lived with and stuff like that, but we did party and all that stuff together. And of course, that fell apart for a while, and then I got in trouble. Went to rehab. Did some things. And then, of course, got out and kept doing the fisherman lifestyle, make a bunch of money, blow a bunch of money, buy a bunch of shit you don't need. And then eventually, my friend, Tony, his sister, I meet her, Heather. 2 weeks later, she calls me up as the last straw. When we get to the funny story part, I'll tell you one about the last straw. But you bounce around boats when you do that. When you get high and all that stuff, you end up bouncing around a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then so I dated my friend's sister Heather, and 2 weeks later, she calls me while I'm out crabbing on the Lady Law and says to me she's pregnant.
So when you say you dated.
Yeah. 2 weeks. yeah. We went like I don't know, 3 dates.
Heather.
Yeah. She was good on the first 2 dates.
It was the third date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
If you're a Toledo boy, you're going up 1000 Line in your truck, and that's where Jaden was. But. Yeah, so we're up crabbing, and there's a big storm that blew through. We're up in Astoria, and we go in, and she calls me she's pregnant and stuff, and I'm like, oh, my head just flipped around.
And you're how old at that point?
20. Hold on. Again, it was still a blur at that point.
It's the year your son was conceived.
Yeah. So it would be 2007. Yeah. Yeah, 2000. It'd be in December 2000.
So you were how old?
Yeah, 27.
Okay.
Yeah, and then everything switched. Like at that moment, everything changed, and I remember thinking like, "Fuck, I got to do something different." And I remember getting a phone number from a guy, Jake Albino, works for Trident Seafoods.
Oh yeah.
I was out of my rehab. I was out. Yeah. The fighter.
He's a fighter.
Yeah. So I was in my rehab stage and stuff, and I was hanging out with some people. Mike Rutherford, they own some boats, and they were on the Dungeon Cove and stuff. They out of Newport, and really good people. I was at a party at their house, and I meet Jake Albino. He's like, "Oh, call this guy." It was Jim McManus's number. He gave me. And
everyone mentions Jimmy McManus.
And as soon as I found out she was pregnant, I was like, I can't be doing this run and gun in Newport bullshit anymore. If I'm gonna be a fisherman, I gotta make this choice right now.
You gotta get legit.
Yeah. And I did. And I think I called them for a year. I think before I didn't know anybody other than Jake, which I really didn't know. I just met at that party. I didn't, and it was like an after church kind of party. It wasn't like a drinky party. So I started calling him in Sonova, and eventually I got the chance to come up a year later. I think I worked in their meal plant. I did everything I could to get their attention, and it wasn't as easy as it is now.
What do you mean you worked at the meal plant?
So the meal plant was doing the next year. The meal plant was doing. I stayed on the Lady Law and I kept working. You know, because I knew I had to make some money for a little while, and then the Lady Law or the I wanted to work for Trident. I knew that, so the closest thing to me was the Trident plant in Newport when they had that plant in Newport. So I thought, I knew somebody that worked there. I'll go there, and I helped engineer change a bunch of stuff in the meal plant, and I stuck around for a little bit, and then I ended up calling Sonova and be like, hey, you know.
Sonova Davidson.
Yeah, and she gave me a chance on, she's like, well, there's a tender boat. And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do that. I'm going to do my best, but I want to be I want to be, I want to be fishing. And so, but if that's what I got to do, I'll do it. And I talked to Jimmy, and I told him about my past and all that stuff. And
all the trouble
and stuff like that. And they gave me a chance. They did.
You're like, I got a kid on the way. And
Sonova, they were really cool about it. And they gave me a chance. I went up on the Tuck Sydney first. The Tuck Sydney first with Ray. And
he's passed now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, just not very long ago.
Yeah.
So we miss Ray.
Yeah. And he was, I couldn't tell you the other guys' names on the boat, but little Matt Chester Jr. was leaving or something. And of course, working at a Cadillac dealership, all that stuff, I always become the engineer on the boat, down there. So on my resume for Trident, I bluffed the shit out of them.
You said you were an engineer.
Yeah, I said I was an engineer. I got experience, know what I'm doing. I was like, well, I know exactly where. I don't know net.
Oil.
I could sew a little bit of net, but I can't net guy. I'm like, I got to get this job. How am I going to be important? Goddamn, I'm an engineer. I can figure this out.
There's a bit of a difference between a Chrysler 400
and
a Cummins 300.
Yeah. I was always the engineer on the boats down there, but I didn't know how much difference there was in this.
Yeah.
At the time.
You're going from a Pinto to a Cadillac.
But I bluffed the shit out of my resume for them. I wanted the job really bad. I really wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. So I went up to take as engineer right away to take Matt Chester's spot. And Junior, yeah.
He's a good engineer.
Yeah. So, and I got on the Tuck Sydney, and then I'm doing it for a little bit, and then everything's working out. At first I'm like, I'm kind of out of my element here.
You're faking it well.
Yeah, I'm faking it, but I'm making it, And I was working. It was working. I had everybody fucking fooled. I picked it up. It was a lot of late nights staying up, tracing stuff out, and figuring and thinking about stuff, and and figuring stuff out. But I got the concept of a lot of it, and the refrigeration part I already kind of had a handle on. So it was just bigger than anything I've worked on before. So. On the Tucks, I was there for baby. In Sandpoint, we're doing the Sandpoint thing. This is my first time seeing, Alaska, and it was.
Did you ride up or fly up?
No, I flew up that time, and then I flew into Sandpoint. Little air. First time on Pin Air. First time experiencing the little shacks for an airport and stuff. And I show up, with my bags, and I was thrown right in the mix, and we started going around little coves and islands taking fish from little pot codders and stuff. We were delivering pot cod, and I was maybe there for a couple weeks. I think we did I think 2 deliveries out of that, and then all of a sudden the Brittany needed somebody. So Lyle on the Brittany, I jumped right from the Tuck Sydney to the Brittany in Sandpoint. Met a bunch of old salts on the Brittany, on these tender boats, but I can't even remember. I remember Lyle, the captain. Denny was a French guy or something. He was the engineer and stuff. And I just went over as a deckhand because they just needed somebody at the time. I think Matt came back on the Tuck Sydney and stuff, so they just kind of kept me going. And so I did a few weeks on the Brittany, and I picked Denny's brain quite a bit on stuff because I knew I wanted to be an engineer. And so, and then that was over. The pot cod ended. They didn't need me up there anymore, so I flew home for a little bit, and then they wanted me to go up on the Wide Bay, but the Wide Bay was here in Seattle and stuff. So
also another tender.
Another tender boat, yeah. And like I said, and this was only like a month. I mean, this is only a month and a half that I was doing tender. And so I was like, all right, fine, I'll go down. And so I did a little bit of shipyard on the Wide Bay.
Month and a half, you're just scrambling.
Yeah, it's kind of scrambling around. Then I end up here in Seattle.
Heather's still pregnant.
Still pregnant, yeah. Don't know her that well, but no, I know. It was she ended up being pregnant, and I needed to get a job and a career figured out and stuff. So she was really, really, it was better than what I was doing before, and stuff. So it was, she was cool with it. She was cool with me being gone and stuff and trying to, provide. And she I guess she saw that, that what I was doing. But we didn't have a lot of time to get to know each other, You
got a baby coming.
Yeah. So I got on the Wide Bay, and I did a little bit of mini shipyard on the Wide Bay, and met the guys in the old yard and stuff, and Leo and and stuff, and that was cool. And but my life at that point was fast, as far as changing and jumping from boat to boat and stuff, and then we take the Wide Bay up to the Bristol Bay. It was time for the bay to start.
So you rode it up?
Yeah, so I rode it up for the first time and saw the inside passage. And Herb, the captain, me, were the only guys, and I I had experience doing wheel watch, but most of it you got a West Coast, the rest is ocean. You're fishing off Oregon. You just don't go east, and you're good. You're fine.
Inside passage.
You're dodging around tugboats. You're doing all kinds of stuff. But I'm the only one with wheel watch experience. And Herb, of course, the captain had it. So he, I got to do the wheel watch during the day. Which is, most of the time, the captain says during the day, but he felt more comfortable, driving where he couldn't see, and then I get to, go during the day. So I saw a lot of the inside passage, and it was probably, I took so many photos and everything. It was the beautifulest thing I've ever seen.
People pay thousands of dollars for that.
It was great. It was great. And if we finally, after a couple stops in Yakutat, Seward, and stuff, we made it to Bristol Bay, and I did the bay full on until we were done. Traveling back and forth from North Naknek, South Naknek, and over in Queejack. We took set nets and stuff, and that was it was what it was. We were just taking fish and then delivering fish. It wasn't there's nothing too epic about it, but I really tried my best to get his best word get a good word back to Sonova, back to Jimmy, something. And so when it was over, I called, and my son was about ready to come out. It was time. And so I called, after it was over, I said, Sonova, well, I want to go on a boat. I want to get on a catcher boat. I'm done with the tender and stuff. If you find me a job, I'll come back. If not, I got to find something down here or something. I got to make some money. And, but I'm going to go home, while my son's being born. And so I was home. And he was due, I think, August 5th or something like that.
Were you guys getting closer now?
Yeah. Me and Heather.
I'm just going to keep pulling back to this.
Me and Heather. Yeah. So, yeah, of course. Yeah, we were, because there was. So we started this book. We started a book of since we weren't together that much, that I would write in, and I would send it to her, and she would write in, and we'd send it back and forth, and we kept this book.
Actual handwriting.
Yeah. So we'd send it back and forth. We still have the book. We still. It's been a while since we brought it out and read it, but we kind of quit doing it now. WhatsApp kind of changed everything. Yeah. But we had this book that we would send back and forth, and we got to know each other a little bit better like that and stuff. And then of course, when I came back from being up here and stuff, my mindset has changed from being party guy and all this stuff. It's different. I'm different, and then so we had a lot of great times together, and then we had some I don't know, but we got to know each other quite a lot better. But of course, my son's being born. She's pregnant. She's emotional and all this stuff, and I wanted to be there for it, and I get a call so he's not coming. He's being stubborn, and that's.
I know it.
He's still stubborn. He's stubborn all the way. So it's just, I think it's August 6th or something, and they've induced. They're going to try inducing and stuff. And Snova calls me, and she's like, "I got a job for you on a fishing boat. As an engineer." I'm like, "All right, okay. When do I have to be there?" She's like when can you be ready? And I'm like, "Well, I'm at the hospital with Heather right now, waiting for my son to be born." And she's like, oh, and I could hear it in her voice, like she's like, she's like backpedaling. I'm like, "I'll be ready when you need me." I just shut it down. I was like, well, I'll fly when you need me. And then so for a few more days, this goes on where they're trying to induce and trying to get Jaden born, and then I'm also talking to Snova. Not yet, hasn't happened yet. And then it finally gets down to the wire where I'm like, I got to take this job or I'm going to miss it, or I miss my son being born. I chose the job. And I flew out the 10th, and he was born when I was in the hotel in Anchorage, waiting to fly to Dutch Harbor. And I get the call from Heather. He's, that she had him. Well, no, she had him while I was on the plane. So, she that was a little bit for her. She's kind of. We even talked about having another kid just so I could be there. But So I get to the PV, the Pacific Viking, and Dutch Harbor. And stuff, and then Roy Olson is going to run the boat, and John Plegger, the captain at the time, he's going to go home and stuff. So I get one trip with Roy, and I find out that I'm a little over my head, maybe just a little. I mean, the tender boats are different. Yeah, tender boats are different, and then when you got all the hydraulics that come with dragging and all that stuff, and there are a lot more shit going on. But I did it. Roy doesn't even know that, they don't even know how much I faked it, but he probably will now.
He does right now.
Yeah. So, but I've always been mechanically inclined, so I don't know what it was. I just determined to do it. Yeah. So, and then at the end of that, when I just filled in, for the switch for John and Roy, they're like, "Well, why don't you just stay around? Why don't you be here, permanently?" Not as engineer at the time. Roy was still the engineer when John was running the boat. He was that was August, of course, when it happened, and I did that B season.
2007?
2008.
8.
Yeah. And then A season 2009. Roy was the engineer. I was a deckhand. And then at the end of that A season, Roy, on the way home after we're done, he's like, "Hey, do you want to just be the engineer? I'll be mate. You be engineer all the time. You did a great job for us when you filled in."
Boy, you faked him out good.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Was he helping you and teaching you along the way?
Yeah. I learned a whole lot from what I learned about Alaska, or maybe it was like this is my first time or tried it. Later on, I figured out that this is mostly a lot of the certain boats are really, really professional, and they take safety and they take other things in consideration when a lot of places don't. So
we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
I know you went to another boat later on, and
but later on I figured it out. But at that time it was different, and then everything was a lot bigger, and there was more things were put together right. So I learned the right way of doing stuff from a lot of it from Roy, instead of and just the way that engine room and was put together and stuff, and the Marco boat, that Marco was safe, and I felt really comfortable on it, and that's where I learned to love a boat, to be proud of a boat, be like, this is mine, this is what I get to take care of, and this is, I could put, I could change it for better, and I really enjoyed being an engineer and being able to, call this mine.
Did you feel that responsibility?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I felt like, especially since it was given to me, right, pretty quick. Like I said, I was only on the boat for a season, half a season for as an engineer, and then a full a season as a deckhand, and then all of a sudden this engine room was given to me, and I realized right away that doesn't happen very often, and that either I'm a really good faker or I actually had something for this, and I took a lot of pride in that. I took a lot of pride, and a lot of pride in Roy and John and stuff having, and just the boat period. That it was just, I started really, I just took it really seriously and took it right to heart right away. And then I was gonna do this. Of course I was, I had a determination. This was my goal, and then I met that goal, and it happened, and I wanted to, and I ran with it, and it was great. Everything was good, and the home life, it was great whenever we got, after a few years of doing it and stuff, and everything was going really, really good, and then we get to where the kids start getting old, Well, my wife has 2 kids from a previous relationship, so I got 3 boys altogether. Mm-hmm. The youngest is mine, of course, Jaden, and I think the oldest at the time was 4, and that's Emery, and Byron was 3 whenever, and then Jaden was 1, So just born, yeah, he was just born. So I started missing a lot. Every time I come home, there'd be different people all the time and stuff. And I was on the PV for 6 years straight. Everything was going really smooth, I was the chief. Eventually, in that time, the boat had a little fire mishap in the yard, and then
I recall.
Yeah, and then we got, at that point, I loved that. It sucked that it happened, but we got to change the boat. I got to make a bunch of changes that I've been wanting to make for a long time. We put a lot of attention to the boat. And stuff. So I got when we left that yard after the fire, this is what I wanted. This is my engine room. I've got to change everything.
Back to the Cadillac.
Yeah, and this is great. And we, and then John retired completely, and then Roy Olson took over and stuff. And Roy is one of us. He was the main. He was on deck with us and stuff like that. So my friends running the boat and stuff, and of course John was my friend too. I really like John, and I really like working with John. And then Roy was just the captain, So I'm the second, other than we have Chris Ivano on the boat too, which has been on the boat forever and great guy to work with. Everything's clicking along great, except at home. I mean, like home is, life is good, but I'm missing being around the kids, and missing, like, I come home, my son's like his personality's changing every time. So I had a hard time fighting that little thing. And then we're doing 8 months at the time. That's when the bee seasons are dragging out to November 1st, and I decided that I want to make a change maybe, and I decided to leave. We were in the yard at the time, and I get an offer. And I was kind of entertaining the offer. It was an offer to go offshore, an offshore boat, privately owned boat. The Aleutian Challenger. Kind of small boat. It's like 98 feet or something like that. And it does nothing but offshore,
Meaning it doesn't bring any fish
on
board?
No, there's no fish. No, there's no refrigeration system. It's really easy to engineer, really easy to achieve. Kind of busy while you're working, but other than that, it was the same. It was basically the same quota, same catch, same money, everything. Instead of doing it for 8 months, I can get it done in 4.5.
But again, you're catching the fish and passing that
to a mothership at sea,
passing the net off.
Yep. Yeah,
never bringing any fish on board.
No. That's what it is. It's you're transferring a cod end at sea to a mothership, and you never come in town. And you don't stop until the mothership's full.
You're done in 4.5 months.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's. I mean, you did A season was cod, so you drug out a little bit, so you could do a 3-month A season. B season, straight pollock was a month. A month and 5 weeks.
How'd that work out for you?
Money, time, excellent. Safety, not so much. It was probably the most scared I've been on a vessel ever. Just a small.
Let's talk about that.
Well,
how did it scare you?
At the time, the boat was like I said, it's 98 feet, and they did a weird lengthening job on it and stuff, to where the boat would in a following sea would pick up in the stern and completely drift sideways, and then
following sea meaning it's pushing
against its stern, behind you, and which normally in a lot of boats it's a nice ride, but once you get on that boat, and in some boats, when you get a heavy following sea, your rudder really doesn't matter a lot of the times. So it would pick it up and turn it completely sideways to the wave and then roll us. It was a weird feeling on a boat. I mean, just in your stomach, this isn't right. Shouldn't be like this. A lot of things about the boat wasn't they didn't pay attention to at the time and stuff. And I realized that there's right way to do things and there's a cheap way to do things, and this is where a privately owned, this is the cheap way of doing things, and it doesn't matter how much time or how much money it is. If I ain't home to spend it with my kids or spend the money, it don't matter.
You got hurt on that.
Yeah, I got hurt on that. I blew my knee out on it. Yeah, so after I blew my knee out, before
talk about that part.
Well, before I left Trident, I told the bosses and everything that, hey, I'm going to come back. When I come back, I'm going to have my license. It was by the time I met the gold with the PV, right? I had life goals. I'm going to become an Alaska fisherman. I'm going to do this. I did that. I set myself some new goals. I'm going to be a licensed chief. I'm going to keep going up. At this time, I'm not bluffing. I mean, well, no, I'm done bluffing at that point. I've been doing it for a while. I've been doing it for a while.
You faked your way all the way through.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, where's the top? Where's the top? Where do I want to go? And well, the Sovereignty or the Patriot, right? They're the top. What do I got to have? I got to have a license to go there, right? So I left Trident, and I told our bosses and stuff, fleet management, Christian, Brian, everybody, is I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna give you a call, and when I do, I'm gonna have that paper. So when I was on the Ocean Challenger and I got hurt, I'm like, I got some time off. I'm getting that paper. So I stayed here with you, and I did, and I got some. I did a little bit of classes, and then eventually I tested, and I got my license and stuff, and I called them right away. As soon as I knew, actually, I think I called right away as soon as I knew I passed.
I want to talk about the injury though. How did that happen? Because it was pretty severe. Yeah.
So I on the boat, we don't bring fish on board. So we have these big scuppers to get rid of whatever spillage we might have.
So those are big cutouts in the
deck. Yeah, where we can drain. Water comes on deck, whatever. It's all steel deck. There's no wood deck for sloughing water or anything. It's just there's these big cutouts in about mid deck, and they're probably I think it's like probably 3 feet by 2 feet. 3 by 2 opening on the port and the starboard side. Just open, no grading, no nothing, just holes, and it's probably I think they're about 8 inches deep. And they slough water, and if fish come up on board, they just go right out those. Well, we went dark ship one night, and in that boat you have to, if you go dark ship, in order to switch over, you have to run out of the wheelhouse forward to the back of the boat, to the stairwell to the engine room. And we're in.
That's the only way into the engine room?
We're in the ditch. Yeah. So yes, and we're in the ditch, which is the sea's coming from the side of the boat, and we're rolling pretty hard. And I go down to switch over, and you had to. It was a goofy setup. From the beginning. You fire up the engines in the back. The switchboard's in the front of the boat. So you had to come up. You had to go out of the house, go down in the engine room, fire up the other auxiliary. Get it up, run back to the forward of the house, back across the deck in this weather,
upstairs across
the deck, back down to where the switchboard is in the forward engine room, and then where the main switch panel is, and then switch over. And on the way back, after firing up the second auxiliary, I slipped out one of those holes. I slipped, and my leg went out the hole to the knee, and we were rolling the same direction at the time. And I rolled up, and my leg went the other way, and it popped. My ACL, MCL, and tibia.
I remember seeing your leg as just a big purple, frickin'.
Yeah, and we did this crossing the Gulf, so we were 6 days away from, from getting to Seattle. We were heading to Seattle, coming home. Yeah, so I had to lay. I walked around like an old man with an axe handle as a cane, with my leg completely blown out, with no stability in my left leg at all, and we made it. And captain, it's like, brush it off. You just sprained your knee. You just sprained it. It's fine. And come to find out, no, I blew the whole thing up. I'm like, I don't think it's a little more than a sprain.
When I saw you, your leg was purple.
Yeah. Well, that's.
All right, so then you.
Oh, yeah. So yeah. I got my license and stuff. Sit up here, and I made the phone call. Hey, I got my license. Give me a call when something comes up. And so I think I went back on the Aleutian Challenger for we were doing yellowfin sole up in Kodiak.
Hey, you told him you'd come back.
I was committed
point,
to
you're a man of your word.
No, I haven't burned a bridge. I've been trying to, even when I left and tried to be the most respectable. I didn't want to burn this bridge. I knew where I wanted to be and stuff. Like I said, I was a sovereignty or patriot. And then of course I've never been a person to do that. So, since I quit doing drugs, but it was,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but so even the Challenger, I'm still friends with those guys and stuff. I just, for their sake, I hope that they would do a bunch of changes to the boat. But I had to go, and I told them, when I went back up and did some yellowfin sole with them and stuff. And my friend Mike Peterson was running the boat. Great dude, great guy to work with, and we did yellowfin sole, and I told him, hey, I'll do B season too, and then I'm putting out feelers to do something. I got my license. It's time for me to do something different.
The feelers were always pointing back to the same boat you were on before, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. I went right back to the PV. Yeah.
Well, your wife had a lot to do with that too, right?
Yeah. She wanted me off there. I mean, like me venting. I'd come home and vent about, she probably had half of an idea what I was talking about, because I would just vent about, in terms that she probably, she tries to understand, and she gets a lot of it, but she knew right away that was unsafe, and she didn't give a shit. She's like, you got to do something different.
Yeah, working in the months if you have to.
But
come back home.
So, but at this point, Trident's bumped up their plant, and they've done everything else, and then all of a sudden the guys are home. I leave, and then all of a sudden the guys are doing 6 months instead of 8. And it was like the next year. And I was like, but I had a plan, and it happened. It worked. It all worked out.
I hate to keep drawing back to how your relationship with Heather has expanded over this time. But
oh God!
To start, I want to give this a little dedication here.
Yeah.
To start with, pregnant to today. I mean, how did that relationship develop over time? Because you're at sea.
She's rad.
6 months out of the year.
I don't know. She's just super rad, and I'm super lucky. Have you seen her?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Of course I know you have. But I mean, like. And everybody I show her a picture, like, how the hell did you do that? I'm like, I don't know.
No, I'm not talking about her looks, but the attitude.
Well, no, that's what I mean. It's not just that. When people ask me that, they're going off looks. I'm going off everything else I know behind the scenes. Is that you have no idea what she put up with, or even what the situation was, and she still has changed my life completely. And the whole thing was, and then me too. I mean, we both grew up so poor. We were very poor. Homeless poor, jumping around, as a kid.
Shit, I saved up to be poor.
Yeah. And so it's all new to us, this family, the family thing, and we both were very determined to not do the same thing that happened to us and stuff. So that really we bonded with that, of course, and basically pushed through the first few months, I think, with basically that. It's like we're not going to continue the tradition of what we went through. So I and then eventually it just worked. It worked out.
I think that little book thing might have helped a lot, huh?
It did. I mean, I think that it did. I got to explain myself more, and she got to explain herself more through writing than we did, talking, because we were still awkward. We would still be awkward. I'd get home and it'd still be like, I don't really know you.
We've had sex.
Yeah. And so I think that, I don't know. I got super lucky. I know it's
maybe she did too.
One to million.
Maybe you both think.
Yeah. And she got lucky.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But no.
Well, she did on that third date for sure.
Yeah. No, I think it was our determination at first was that, and then we just become best friends after that. It was, our personalities, everything just worked.
Have you been scared up there about losing them?
About something happening at home while I'm there?
No.
Happened to me?
Happened to you?
Well, yeah, on the Lucian Challenger, of course. That's why I wanted to go. There's been a few times where, but you know what stops me from freaking out? I look around to everybody else has been up here for twice as long as I have, and if they're not freaking out, I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to show this is all good. All right, I'm going to hold strong. But as long as being an engineer and stuff, I make sure I don't have slack tanks. I don't have anything that my downstairs is making us unsafe. And if everybody else is, not freaking out, I'm not going to freak out either. But as far as specific scary times, there's times on the Lucian Challenger that I was probably the most scared, and that's why I got off that boat. But give the Lucian Challenger credit, and the owner Bob, they just went through a major overhaul.
Have you seen her?
Yeah, I haven't been on board. I'm gonna go on board and take a look.
She looks amazing
good
right now.
Yeah, I think they took care of a lot.
She looks like a lot
of
like the Arctic Ram, coming out with a great big body and a small little head.
Yeah. So
what about fun times?
Fun or funny?
Funny.
Funny. All right. So back to the last straw.
The last straw.
Yeah, the Newport boat. So I'm new to the really new to the fishing thing, right? And we're doing hake out of Charleston, Oregon, down there by Coos Bay and stuff. And it's hot. It's summer. It's August, and I know that the captain's a little bit of a different. He's a different cat altogether, just kind of a different dude. And we're all back then you had to run the winches on. One guy would run the winches. You just jump from back and forth, and it was all done by hand. And so you're up the whole time you're towing, but it was usually a day tow, and then you're back in and you're going in to deliver. Well, this guy would call us up to the wheelhouse, and it's hot. He would be in his boxer shorts with his dick and balls hanging out, and you would walk up to the side of the house, this old Gulf shrimper, where the door is on the starboard side, and he'd just have it open all the time, and he would call you up, and his dick and balls would be eye level with you, and he would be asking you serious questions, and his twig and berries would be right here.
The beans and franks.
Yeah. And I was like, I realized that, if you own a boat and you run a boat, you can get away with anything you want. And you could treat guys however you wanted. We went through a lot of people. That guy was kind of a dick too, in more ways than one. Yeah. But I don't know if that's funny, but I think that's the goofiest thing that I learned is like, oh shit. I would send other guys, like he would call us up like, hey, what's going on? Hey, go see what Brett wants. And they would walk up and have to go look at his shit. Because I was sick of looking at him. The worst part is it took me 2 or 3 times to stop going up there.
So every time, just
it was bad.
And on that note, guys, we're definitely going to be out of time here today, but I wanted to take a second to read another letter that was written in. This is from Lisa Woodley. It says, "Hi, Mark. I found your podcast via the Salmon Sisters weekly email and have spent the last couple of days binge listening. I've really enjoyed every single episode. My husband has been involved in the Bering Sea fisheries for many years, and I love hearing the backstory of people and boats as he's talked about them over the years. Thank you for capturing and preserving the stories of this fascinating industry and how it has changed over the years. And thank you for asking each guest about what folks can do to get into the fishing industry. I was especially appreciative of Casey McManus calling out that you don't have to be on deck to be a part of the fishing family. For example, one of my daughters spent a few summers as a fish ticket clerk for Trident and Knack. She learned not only how to work hard, be good at what she did, and made memories and friends she'll have for her whole life. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to many more episodes, stories, and chances to learn more about the unique and amazing family that is the fishing fleets of the Bering Sea. Lisa, thank you very much for writing that in. And I've had some additional correspondence with Lisa about, her husband served for, I think, 26 years, if I'm recalling the email correctly, about the possibility of interviewing someone from the Coast Guard. And thank you, Lisa, for that. And we'd probably be looking to get him on. Currently, we do have one in the bank as a retired Coast Guard, but we're always willing to expand. Of course, the entire premise behind this podcast is to capture all stories of the Bering Sea and beyond in our maritime industry. So, thanks again for writing in. I do encourage anybody else to write in, and you can do so at mark@galleystories.net. Look us up on Facebook at Galley Stories, also on Twitter at Galley Stories. Do you have anything to add here, Derek?
No.
No response to her awesome letter?
No, she's right. You can be, this industry is huge as far as, many different ways that you can contribute to it.
How do you get in?
If you want to get into the fishing part where I'm at, you just lie your ass off. I think the best way that we're seeing new guys come up in is the Trident has this program where they're paying, where they're having a training program and stuff. And like when I did it, I needed experience. I needed to lie. I needed to bullshit. I needed to get there. I needed to be somebody. You don't have to do that anymore. You can actually, for the most part, if you really want to work and you can handle, you gotta be kind of be dedicated. You can't just be like a whim. You don't want to do it on a whim. But because the guys that you're doing it with are dedicated. This is their life. This is where we live. That we're proud of every part of that vessel. But if you can get along with guys and you can try it, there's a good program to get people to try people out to do things, and they've done really, really well. Other than that, if it's not that way, it's you gotta go the coast road or start out small. But you gotta try. You gotta be determined. You gotta call.
You gotta work at it.
You gotta work at it. That's all.
Any last words for us?
Not at all.
Again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we're looking forward to having you guys hear our next episode. But also just an upcoming event here in the Seattle area at Bad Jimmy's Brewing Company there on Leary Way. Looking to have an ALS fundraiser, actually for the Pat Dwyer in Pat Dwyer's name. If you guys tuned into episode 11 with Sean Dwyer, we're looking at sometime in the next month and a half or so, and we'll announce the date later. But having a fundraiser for ALS. So anyway, again, guys, I appreciate all of you tuning in and your feedback that you've given us, and we will see you on the next episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye bye.